Hello, everyone. Good day to you. It's a beautiful Wednesday, sunny day where I'm at. Hopefully it's pleasant and nice weather where you're at too. I'm currently in the Midwest, which, this time of year, October, almost the middle of October, you wouldn't think has such nice weather, but it feels like I'm in Los Angeles right now. So where you're at too. I'm currently in the Midwest. All right, so I can hear myself. That's a good sign through the YouTube. So that means that you probably can too. And so if you're joining us, again, welcome. Thanks for joining this workshop. Again, the top 5 mistakes that candidates don't even realize that they're making is the name of this workshop. And top 5 blunders, I apologize. The same thing. If you're in the chat box and you just joined us, please say hi in the chat box. And also, if you have an upcoming interview, please put it out there. When is your interview and where is it at? So we can congratulate you and wish you the best of luck. And then, as always, with these public workshops that we do at IDC, we're going to have time for some questions at the end. So there'll be another reason to utilize the chat box later on. So as I'm going along, feel free to add a question if there's something that I say that you're like, oh, I'd like to hear more about that, or like more clarification. Go ahead and add a question to the chat box, and I will review them after I'm finished speaking on the topics of today, on the topic of today. Now, I just want to say again, thank you all for coming out, but we do these periodically. If you're new to IDC, you haven't heard of us before, we do these twice a month lately. We've been doing them, and it depends, not all the time. There's, as you know, because everyone here is in this process in some way, shape, or form. There are some parts of the year that are very busy, right? Lots of interviews happening, lots of candidates preparing, lots of tests happening. Whether that's the boards or whether it's bench tests happening. But there's other times of the year where things are just quiet. People are, the interview season's over. People are going home to their home countries, going to their homes for holidays that come up in the US. And, that's a reality for everybody. So we're doing them twice a month right now. Probably in a few months we'll slow it down a little bit, and then we'll pick it back up again. I'm guessing you'll start to see, again, consistent public workshops like this more consistently again in around January. Because we want to have as much, we want to time it so that we're really matching up with people. So what we've found in the past is that if we did workshops when people weren't really paying attention and they were not in this, the process wasn't on their mind at all, there weren't great questions out there. There were very few people watching, and so we just want to make sure that we're in sync with the community. But we do these because we really, many people work with us and utilize some of our services, whether it be editing services, interviewing, bench test preparation. People work with us, but there's a lot of people who don't work with us, and that's great. But they still get a lot out of these workshops, and we feel, well, why not? Why not put that information out there to help people in general? And there's some folks that decide not to work with us in terms of any of our services, but they sign up for our workshop All Access Pass, and then they have access to all of these workshops that we've done the past 3 to 4 years. And that's a great way too, if you're doing your own thing, you want to prepare on your own, and you're very confident about that, but you want a little bit of an edge, you want to kind of get insight on some bench test related topics and some interview related topics and some application side of things. All of that's in the workshop All Access Pass. You can find that by going to international.com/workshops. So anyway, hopefully this is helpful to you guys. Now today, like I say, I want to, if you guys are in the chat box, please again let us know where you're writing in from. That'd be nice to know. And also if you have an upcoming interview and where that is, so that we can, maybe I can talk especially about interviews related to the schools that you're going to be going to. Okay, so let's start. what are the top 5 blunders that we see people make, or that we hear, more likely hear about people making? Now, why would I know this? I'm not at this moment, I'm not working at a university. I used to work at a university, and I used to interview people for admissions. I used to interview people for various positions on campus. I used to interview both staff members, faculty, and students during my time there. So I did a lot of that, but right now I'm not. So how would I know what kind of mistakes people are making on their advanced standing program interviews? Well, simply because I talk to them after they've been through a number of interviews, and maybe some of you guys can relate. I mean, we do a lot of interview sessions here. I do a lot of interview sessions. I've done a ton this year with people, and really helping them hone their skills. But what I hear from candidates as we talk is some of the mistakes, and candidates are always willing to share what they think their biggest mistake was on their last interview, and often either they got a bit of preparation beforehand, maybe they did go through the interview mastery, or they didn't get any and they just kind of winged it and went in. But either way, it's great for me to be able to hear what those mistakes are, because then I can pass it on to you guys, the audience, and hopefully that will help you prevent from making those mistakes, or at least curb some of that. So the biggest one that came to me, and that's been coming to me recently, and we talk a lot about all these mistakes, so it's not like this is going to blow anyone's mind, but I really want to reinforce that no matter what, these mistakes continue to be made. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people not researching their programs well enough. Now, it used to be when I began doing these workshops that I would just say, well, people don't research at all. But I'm actually finding, maybe because we're talking a lot about it and we put so much information out there and people are starting to pay attention, people now are doing more research than I remember them doing at the beginning. Sometimes people really would surprise me. I'd talk to candidates and I'd be like, do you have any questions for us? That was part of the mock interview session. And candidates would just be like, no, I don't. Which is a no-no, right? It's a fail there. But now I see people have done some research, but they're still making the mistake of not doing good enough research. And so one example came up not too long ago with a candidate I was interviewing, and I commended her, and I still do commend her for doing research about the school. But we talked about something which, I think it's a subtle thing, but it was important to stress, is that she had done enough research to know a little bit about the advanced standing program at that university, but not enough to ask a really good question. So what ended up happening is she asked about a particular program that the school had. It was some sort of nonprofit program or outreach community service type thing. But because she didn't really know anything about it, she just knew the name of it. The question was, I hear you have this such and such community service program, can you tell me about it? So that was her question. And again, I really commended her for at least knowing the name of the program. That's a plus. But the problem was, it fell short of being a really A+ or even A interview question, because she put the responsibility on the interviewers to have to fill her in on this rather big topic. As you know, it's not an easy topic, and her question was not specific, especially, and it wasn't necessarily even related to her as a candidate. So it was just a general, non-specific question about this program, and the program was probably listed on the website, and she said, could you explain it to me? So now, as an interviewee, I'm asking you, the interviewer, who I'm trying to impress, to basically spend your energy and take some time out of your day, and you're already tired, to please explain to me about this program. And I'm not even really telling you why it matters to me. So there's some problems there, right? Hopefully you can follow me on this. It's like you get some points for knowing about that program, because again, in the old days when I used to do this with folks, they would have no questions, or no good questions that were specific to the school. Now we're getting closer, but now we're still leaving this open-ended, like, please fill me in on something. And so we talked about, what would be a better way to approach that? if she had done a little more research, dug deeper into that program, now she knows the name. Now she can figure out, okay, well, for example, with this community service program, you know, maybe what local clinics does it serve? Once we know what local clinics does it serve, we can figure out, okay, well, maybe this clinic specializes in the homeless, and this clinic specializes in children, and this clinic specializes in elders. We can start to now formulate questions about specific clinics in that community service program, and and then try to find a connection to me as a candidate. So now I can say, well, I'm a candidate that has a pediatric interest. I want to specialize in pediatrics. I see your program. One of the clinics it serves is such and such children's clinic. Da, da, da. Is there an opportunity for me to get involved in that, or what? How much of time would I get on rotation to be able to go there as a candidate? Is that something that I could negotiate and maybe increase my time or hours required for this community service program? Can I increase it there and spend more time doing pediatric work than I did maybe in the elder clinic? Maybe you find that there's some research projects that are going on in connection with that community service program, and maybe that relates to some research that you've done or are interested in doing. Now we can start to ask more specific questions. And so that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, is not doing enough research. So doing research but then falling short. So I'm really encouraging people to push further. And it's not always easy. You know, the problem with a lot of these school websites is that they don't, you know, they're very busy people, right? Like, there's a whole world of stuff happening within just a dental program at one of these universities. There's a whole world, right? Politics going on in the faculty and staff. You know, drama happening between people, money and budgets and all this stuff, and research grants, and what are we going to do with the research grants if there's a research program going on? So many things going on, and then you look at the website and it looks like crickets. Like, what's going on here? Very little. Maybe there's like a press release 3 months ago from the dean about some random thing. Not a lot to work with, right? So what do you do in that situation when there's not a lot to work with? And so my suggestion, again, to another candidate, I believe, was that she go down to the school, but when, you know, I said, have you made your flight arrangements yet? And she had said no. I said, great, you know, go 2 days early, go 3 days early, while the university is open. Maybe it's a Wednesday. Every single program, every single dental school at every single campus I've been to, there's like a quad or a lunchroom or a kind of a lobby where students are gathering, especially if it's nice weather outside, which it is right now. You can usually find people outside that are dental students. They kind of look like it. You can start talking to people too. So this idea that we have to only look on the internet for our research. No, actually what would be really powerful is to visit the campus while it's in session, try to talk to some dental students, and just have a conversation. You never know what amazing things you'll find when you start talking to people. And if you're honest with them and say, listen, I love this school, it's my dream to go here, what made you want to go here? And really flatter them as much as you can, and show interest and passion and excitement for what they're doing, and really put them up a little bit. You don't realize, you know, how much they'll give you. There's a Buddhist saying or something. It's like an old wise saying that says, like, the lake that bows down to the mountains receives all the water. Something like that, right? It's this idea of humbleness. When you put yourself below and you're humble, people will give you so much to work with. And so if you just go to the school, get rid of your ego, or, you know, I'm a dentist like them, and it's not fair that they're in school and I'm not. Get all that talk out of your head. Go down there, introduce yourself if you can. I know it's kind of scary, but just say hello, be friendly, and say, hey, you know, you're in the position I dream to be in. Can you give me something? You know, Tell me about what you're doing. And then guess what? They're going to give you so much information. They're going to tell you about the interesting programs that are going on, tell you what the most interesting research project they've heard about going on. You know, tell them what they like, what they don't like. These are gold. It's just a gold mine of questions that you can grab, write down, and then bring to your interview and say, hey, you know, I have a few friends here, or I have a few acquaintances, which is more true now, that your acquaintance that I met through various ways that go to school here. They told me about this program, they told me about that program. Now you have some great ammunition to go in there. And it's not what everyone else gets. So every time, if you were all to go out and talk to a student at the same school, all of you, there's how many people in the chat room? There's 18 now. You could all, if I sent all 18 of you out into a quad at any particular school, and you had to talk to 18 different students and come up with questions, guess what? You guys would probably come up with 18 different types of questions at least. You'd have a mix of so many different questions just from the same school. Isn't that so much better than all 18 or 30 people going to the same website to find the same information, the same press releases? I think it is. I think that's really, to me, the star interviewers that really make the difference, that really shoot for the A versus the C interview, are the ones that really do that extra work. So again, now, you might be thinking, well, I already booked my flight. Then most likely that's true. Whatever you can do, you can get on the internet, you can go on Facebook and try to find people that are current students there, try to add them. There's other ways to do it if time is of the essence right now. And it depends. It depends on how much time you have and all that kind of stuff. But these are just some ideas. Now, what are some other mistakes that I see? I just want to say one more thing about not researching the school. It not only affects the questions that you have at the end, but it also can affect the question that you're asked, why have you chosen our program? Or why do you think our program is a good fit for you? And again, you need to make the case. It's like you're a lawyer making the case for yourself and trying to sell yourself to the school. You need to be able to prove to them that there is a good connection, there's a good thread, a consistent thread between your past career choices and your future dreams in dentistry that fits like a good puzzle with their school, right? Like puzzle pieces fit together. It's like, oh, this is perfect fit. So again, if your interest is endodontics and you want to specialize in that eventually, finding if you happen to go into a school that has a really strong endo residency, that's how you need to make that case. And so again, the more research you do about that particular residency program, how you can get involved, etc., especially if you found some research that they're doing or something like that, the better. And so that's the importance of researching. If I had an endo interest and I was planning on going to a school, I would go a few days before if I could, and I would talk to some dental students and say, where do the endo residents hang out? And they might say, well, over there, or the other, room C5. I'd walk over there. I'd say, hey, I'm a prospective dental student. I'm hoping to go here next year. Is there anyone who might be on a break that I could talk to real quick? I mean, what do you got to lose? No, there's not. Go away. That's about it. So anyway, just some ideas. Again, those who really spend a little more energy on research, it takes them so much further because they're going to have unique, interesting, and specific questions and make great cases about why this school is good for them. Another mistake or blunder number 2, people often use their weakness as a strength, and they don't even try to cover it up. They don't even try to pretend like it's a weakness very well. Now, this is again, this is a pretty common one, and as much as we've talked about this in the past, it continues to happen. It's sometimes surprising to me why. It's understandable why people do this. In this question about strengths and weaknesses, and it's an important one, we have to remember that this question, the response, the perfect response to this is a balanced response. It's not black or white. It's not one way or another. It's a perfect balance between admitting your, basically saying, oh, I'm a fool, I'm a complete failure of everything, here's all of my mistakes, which you don't want to do, and I'm a perfect human being that doesn't make any mistakes. These are the two sides, and you're trying to find that middle ground. People don't really get that, so they usually err and they say, well, I'm on the more perfect side. But the problem with saying that you're on the more perfect side is that very few people believe you. I don't know if any of you have been paying attention. It's hard not to pay attention right now to the U.S. Politics that are going on. And, you see Donald Trump and he says disparaging things about women, and then he says afterwards, I respect women more than anybody else. He's actually said these words, I would have more respect for women than anyone else. Except if you look at the polls, very few people are believing that. I know there are some people that do. But in terms of statistics, if you mind how many people are really going to believe you at this point. Now, politics aside, I mean, about which way or not, I'm not really getting into who's right for you. But politicians, they all seem to do this in some ways, some way or another, and in many ways it can work. But there is this point where it's not believable. Like saying that you're a perfect candidate, that I've never made any mistakes, that my mistake is that I'm too prepared, or I'm too diligent, or I'm too much of a perfectionist. I just keep hearing these over and over and over again, and the truth is that it's just a waste of breath, because no one's going to really believe that. We all have weaknesses, and we all have significant weaknesses. The most able, strong, the best dentist that professor that you may have had in dental school, or that he or she was a mentor to you, they're unbelievable dentists, they're incredible at their craft. Get to know them well enough, and you'll start to see maybe they have some character flaws. Maybe they have some anger issues, some temper issues. I mean, there was a dentist I remember that Alyssa used to have as a professor, and he was incredible, but he was also well known for his famous temper, that if you made him angry, oh my Lord, just run the other direction. So he was incredible, an incredible clinician, an incredible instructor. People loved him, and they were terrified of him. So we all have a weakness, and we all know that. And so when you say to an interview committee, I'm a perfectionist, that's my greatest weakness, it's just not believable, and you lose points when you say that. And what I mean by points, by the way, is there's not like usually literal points, but in their minds, you're kind of dropping. So you want to find the response that shows that you're human, without showing that you're like a human delinquent. You don't want to be like, well, I've made this mistake. That's let's say you've made a terrible mistake in dentistry. And so this was an example a while back of a candidate that we were working with, who in the mock interview talked about a mistake that she made that was pretty big, and it damaged the patient long term, caused damage to their situation, and side effects and problems and stuff like that. And why did that happen? Because she didn't do her due diligence. She didn't take x-rays beforehand. And you know what? This is understandable. I'm not having any judgment towards this candidate, because I know that they had their reasons. They were, it was early after dental school, or it was in dental school. They probably weren't given the proper, structure to their work, and I think the patient tried to get them to hurry up. There's a lot of reasons for this, and probably a lot of the fault laid on the patient, from what I remember. But to discuss that and to talk about that as your weakness, that, and in this case, it wasn't so much the weakness, it was actually like a mistake that they made. It's sort of borderline on too much. Like it's sort of, you're reminding them of a very interesting story, very scary story, and now you're connecting it with you. Or a weakness that is about, you know, I'm just really not a great student. I fail at all my tests. I'm just not good at taking tests. Again, a weakness that may be true, but not something that we want to focus them on. We don't want to have them associate bad student, bad at taking tests with you. So what do we do? We have to find this balance. And so usually with this kind of question, it's about finding a weakness that is relatable. So I want you to remember, finding a weakness that is relatable. Because not everyone can relate to being a bad test taker. And not everyone will relate, many people will not relate to being a perfectionist about everything and being perfect. No one can relate to being perfect either. So that's why both answers are bad. What is a relatable weakness? Maybe temper could be one. So having, and I wouldn't necessarily use temper, but the idea is that it's relatable. What you could say is impatience and wanting things to go really well and being frustrated. So there's another keyword, frustrated, when people around you aren't as focused on a goal as you are. There's a weakness in terms of saying no to patients that want too much, or that asking for handouts, or asking for you to, again, break the rules and stuff like that. So there's boundaries. So we can talk about boundaries. That's a relatable thing that we often deal with. I want you to think about, if you can revisit in your mind your experience as a dental assistant or as a dentist in your home country. What were some of the things that everyone, especially other dentists, dealt with and struggled with? What were some of those things that if you said, well, what is the weakness of my mentor? She's a great woman and she's an incredible dentist overall, but what are her strengths? What are her weaknesses? Can I relate to that, and can I reframe them as a weakness? So that's a big one, and I know I'm talking a lot about this, but I really want I want to drive this home with people, is that you need to find a relatable weakness. The strength part is whatever you want. Just make sure it's not unbelievable. So that's why I don't really focus too much on the strength. So you can choose whatever strength you want as long as it's true. I think the more true it is, the better. Don't make up something that just sounds like rubbish. Okay, the next blunder that candidates don't realize that they're making is that they focus too much on the quantity of their past, of their accomplishments, or things they've been involved with, instead of the quality. Another way of putting this is they talk too much about the what instead of the why. And so they're kind of related. But let's talk about quality over quantity. You know, especially in response to something like "tell me about yourself" or "tell us about yourself." At the beginning, people try. It's like, oh, I got to put as much stuff as I can in here, you know. And so that's like they're taking their resume, and then they start running through it like it's like they've been asked to please read your resume for us. Again, that wasn't the question. They didn't ask you to please read your resume out loud, and yet the way they're responding is like, gotta get it all in. Let me start. You know, I was born on this day, and you know, I went to dental school here, and then I graduated here, and then I did a program here, and then I did volunteering, and I did a dental club, and then I came here, and then it's like exhausting to listen to. And they have to make sure that every single thing they've did is in there. And it's a mistake. It's just a pure mistake, because number one, not everything that you've mentioned is important. That's the biggest mistake, is that you believe that every little thing you've done is as important as every other thing. And so when you're saying, I went to a dental camp in my home country for a Saturday, and you're giving that as much attention as saying, I graduated from this dental school, which was 2 or 3 years, or 4 years, why are you giving the same weight to those things, as if those are the same? And people will do that. Say, oh, I went to dental school at this college. I did 2 years experience at this hospital. Done. That's all they'll say. And then I did a dental camp on a Saturday in May, and blah, 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 blah. It was really great. So you've actually given sometimes more weight to a dental camp, which you volunteered for, which may have been a requirement, part of your curriculum, than you did to entire 2 years of experience. Because you're trying to just fit everything in. And I really want people to think about that. Why? There's so much potential in 2 years of dentistry that you did. You know, some candidates don't have any experience at all. And so to leave that on the counter, just, okay, that's dental experience 2 years, let's move on. Or they'll talk about 2 years of a dental experience, and then they'll talk a lot about an observership they did in the US. And that's great too, but, you know, what about, you know, again, remember what the biggest chunks in who you are. What are the most important aspects of your candidacy? And what else can you talk about? And tell us more about the quality. What did you learn in those 2 years? What was some of the challenges you faced? What skills do you think you gained most? Think about these questions, because this 2 years that you're ignoring or just saying one sentence about has so much potential to talk about and really define who you are as a candidate. And that's what we're talking about, is we're defining you as a candidate. And it's not, if I know that you're a candidate that had, you know, maybe your hand skills went from a 2 to a 8 after 6 months of working because you had such a great mentor in your home country as an associate dentist, and you were taught, he or she as a mentor taught you approaches to treatments that you never knew were possible even when going to dental school, and just opened your mind. Now I have a different picture of you as a candidate than I did before. When you just told me you went, that's it, I don't know what to say. Oh yeah, she went. Great. And she did a bunch of other things. But when I learned that, oh, and she grew, and she studied under this person, and she listened, and she was humble to him or her, and she was someone with the capacity to improve their skills, and she was paying attention. Now I have a different picture. Now you're becoming a person to me, and someone that I am rooting for, and you're becoming someone I can connect and relate to. So there's a lot there, there's a lot of story there that you're missing out on. And so that's one of the biggest mistakes I see, is people just focus on quantity instead of the quality of different things. And you know, the other thing too is, again, as I said, what you leave out of your responses is often as important as what you include. And this is a concept that is beyond just your interviewing. This is a concept in life in general. You know, I think Steve Jobs was famous for saying something like that. What we don't do, what we choose not to do, is as important as what we choose to do. So instead, you don't see Apple working on every single technology product out there. They leave a lot on the table that they don't even bother trying to do with. They just focus on doing really great work on a small number of products. Or if you look at it, certain like art, where you see a lot of white space, you know, and then you see one object in the middle. This is very famous in like Japanese art. You see a lot of white, large canvas, a lot of white space, and then you see, you know, some object in the middle. It's very beautiful. And it's because of the white space that it really gives a focus to that object in the middle that's being painted. And so, versus filling the entire canvas with as much clutter as you can, right? So this is what I'm trying to get to, is really choose and be very mindful and thoughtful about what to say, and also be thoughtful about what you're going to leave out. All right, so we're coming up on the end of this talk. The last one I want to talk about is kind of something that we don't talk about a lot here, but it's something that I do talk about in the interview course, and I'm going to push it a little further, which is people are not talking before their interviews to the people that they have, the resources in their lives that they have, as well as they could be. And I talk to candidates, and I say, talk to, you're an assistant here at this office, or you're observing this dentist. Have you had a conversation and just said, could I have 15, 20 minutes on your calendar, on your schedule for, sometime next week to just talk about my interview and to get your feedback on I'd love you to just kind of give me your feedback and give me any kind of insight you have into me as a candidate. So this is such a big missed opportunity. Sure, you're working at that office and maybe they like you, but what kind of feedback have you gotten from them about you as a candidate? For a lot of people, not much at all. You got your letter of recommendation maybe, and that was about it, and that's always going to be positive. But if you could sit down with your boss maybe, or the dentist you're observing, or someone you're doing a research project for, and say for 15 minutes, and often that 15 minutes will be 30 minutes, right? And just say, hey, I'm going in for this interview on such and such a date. Here's my CV. What do you think makes me a strong candidate? What do you think in terms of qualities, in terms of what I have to offer? You've worked with me now. You've seen my skills in many aspects. You've seen my work ethic. You've seen my personality, you've seen my temperament, you've seen my ability to interact with patients, right? All this stuff. What would you say about me? And this will really help you when they say to you during the interview, tell us why you're the best candidate. Tell us why we should choose you. This will give you a lot of solid, real feedback that you can use, again, as ammunition when you go in to deal with this question. Otherwise, you're just going to have to make up, either you're going to have to make up stuff, or you're going to have to say, very cliche things like, I'm a very hard worker. But wouldn't it be nice to actually have some real meat to work with, some real substance to work with? And so when you go in and have this meeting, take notes, of course. I want you to take very specific notes about what they say. And take the good and the bad, because the bad could be substance that you can use for your weakness, things that you need to work on. And again, when you talk about those weaknesses, you can talk about how you're growing with those and how you've worked on those and how you're addressing the issue. But this is important stuff. So I want you to think about that. The other thing, too, is that if you can also use it to get their insight on what it's like to go through a demo program in the US, maybe something you haven't done yet. Then no matter what school they went to, they'll give you some insight. But they might actually have colleagues that went to the school that you're interviewing at. And that's another way to say, hey, do you know anyone who's gone to UCLA, who's local around here? And if they say yes, and they know them well, they could set you up with a time to chat with them. And that person could tell you all the things they liked about UCLA or whatever school. And then you have now more, again, you have more in your, it's like you're stocking up for winter here. You have more in your storehouse to talk about in terms of why do you want to go to UCLA? Well, I've talked to other alumni of this school, of this program, and here's what they said, and it excites me and stuff like that. So those are some ideas for how to really make your interview go from, again, a C interview to like an A interview. So those are so important. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat room. I don't see any any questions or anything at this point. And so if that's the case, we can wrap up early, which is great. But if you do have a question, this is the time to speak it out. Unless it's not working, which is also possible. Let me just refresh the page, make sure I'm not missing anything. But if you do have a question, no, I don't see any new questions. So I'm going to leave it there. I'll check a few more times to see. But hopefully that's been helpful to you. 5 interview blunders that interviews don't know they're making. And what I will say is, we really try to put out a lot of good information in these workshops. if you feel like you want more, I'd say the last mistake people make, of course, that's not really, wasn't part of my 5, but it's just a mistake that I see people make, is unfortunately that they don't take advantage of interview resources, interview preparation resources, until after they fail an interview, which is we're happy to help people when they come, of course, and we understand, and it's fine because a lot of people don't think of preparing for the interview the way they think about bench test. But if it's on your mind and you haven't done an interview before, and you're someone who is not the most outgoing person, and you're trying to figure out how to talk about weaknesses in your application or in your candidacy in general, maybe you were gone for 3 years, don't know what to talk, how to respond to that kind of stuff. That's what interview preparation is all about, is helping you to strategize through those and come up with a way to talk about them in an effective way. Again, to use the example of politics, you know, when a candidate is prepared and they've thought about every question that's going to come to them in a press conference or a debate, you can see it can make a big difference versus when they just run out without any preparation and they, you know, they say crazy things. So it does have an impact, right? So you want to make sure that you're prepared for what to say and you've thought about everything that can come your way. So definitely take advantage of interview preparation in some form beforehand. If you want more of this kind of public, you know, these workshops that we've done, if you want more, we have online member meetings in either our interview mastery course or our bench test mastery courses. And those are usually offset from the public workshops. So we do 1 week a public one and 1 week just for our members. We're going to be doing a USC problem-based learning, what do you call it, like a scenario, a mock scenario, not next week, the week after next week, so the 26th of October. So remember that. This is going to be a USC practice. It's going to be virtual, which is cool. We've done this before. It'll be over Google Hangouts. And now, this will be for members only. So it's one of the perks of being a member at IDC is that you get access to these kind of things. But no matter whether you're part of the bench test mastery or the interview mastery, you're welcome to join. And what will be happening is we will be going through their initial kind of icebreaker session or icebreaker exercise that they do. And then we'll be moving into a full PBL case and going through that scenario, and it will have people that are volunteering to moderate and to write down things for the group, and we'll do we do the best we can reenacting this, or not reenacting, but practicing this live with each other. So if you're part of one of those, if you're part of either the bench test mastery or the interview mastery, and you're going to USC, you definitely should join this. You need to RSVP. It's in the members area of our website. Just go to member meetings to RSVP. And then if you're not going to USC, but you're a member, but you think, well, maybe one day I might, or it's possible next year I might want to go, and I want to practice anyway, just join us. You know. And if you don't have anything else to do and you just want to join anyway, and you're like, well, I don't want to go to USC, but I still want to be part of this, for the heck of it, join us. The more people, the merrier. The more people, the better this works out. So we really encourage people to join if you're a member, and be a part of this. Your RSVP, and then we'll email out information on how you can actually join the Google Hangout. Great, so that's been said. And if you like these and you want access to more of these that we've done over the years on so many topics of interviewing, so many topics of bench tests, take advantage of the Workshop All Access Pass. It's again at idcinternationalgovcentral.com/workshops, and it gives you access to all this great stuff that you can just review. It's hours and hours of stuff that you can review and watch before your upcoming bench test and interview. So, okay, got a few questions. I heard that doing shadowing and research boosts the resume. So is it really not possible to get in without doing all these things, Dr. Mary? I'm going to guess what you mean is research so when I was talking about research in my topic, what I meant was doing research yourself about the school. I don't mean like formal research, so just a clarification of that. Like, just do research about the program. Do your search and find. So informal, very informal research there. When we're talking about formal research is what I assume you're talking about. I heard that doing shadowing and doing formal research can boost your resume. Is it not possible to get in without doing these things? It's absolutely possible to get in without doing both shadowing and formal research. I would say the majority of candidates that get in have not done formal research projects in the United States. There's a handful that have done they volunteer and they do a research project, or they help out in a research project, a dental research project in the US for an institution. But that's not the majority of people. And so while it will help boost your resume, it's not vital, it's not required. In terms of shadowing, I would say most of the candidates we talked to have done shadowing in some form. And so it helps you both on your resume, but also helps you kind of also know how to talk about the differences between US and maybe your home country in terms of dentistry. But again, I've seen candidates who have not had any of that. And so if you have other things that are strong in your candidacy, maybe instead of shadowing, you were a dental assistant, so you didn't do any shadowing, but you were a dental assistant, that's just as good, probably better. If you have done a lot of volunteering opportunities and you've done enough of that where it's not shadowing, but you're actually assisting in some nonprofit kind of aspect of dentistry, that could be good. There's other ways to do it, so don't worry about it if you haven't done any shadowing. I would say if you haven't done anything in the US except be part of about this process, you really have to then have really strong, you're going to need to have a strong GPA, and have strong other test scores, TOEFL, no problems passing your boards, part 1 and part 2 probably, at least part 1, and then some good experience behind your belt in your home country would be great. So if you can make up for it in those ways, that's also another way to do it. But again, if you haven't done any of those things, or if you've had struggles and low GPA, and so maybe you need to do some shadowing. If everything else is not so hot, shadowing could be helpful. Hopefully that helps. Of course, these are questions that are very personalized to each individual. It's hard to just blanket them. So, and then AJ asks, can you repeat the time and date for the USC PBL meeting? Yeah, that will be October 26th. So in about 2 weeks from now, and it'll be at noon. So be prepared for that. And again, if you're interested in that, log into your into your account in the members.internationaldentacentral.com, and look under either the Interview Mastery or the Bench Test Mastery menu. There's a link to member meetings, and you can sign up and RSVP for that there. Please RSVP at least a few days before, probably a week before would be great. If we get too many people, we'll just have to cut it off, but I think in the past we've gotten 5 to 10 people. So, let's see. Okay. So Irene asked, what are the questions we can ask the interviewer? Irene, hopefully you saw the earlier part of this. If not, what I will say is you can ask anything to the interviewer. I talked a lot about it. That was my first top mistake, is like not being able to, people don't ask well enough questions. So I'm probably not going to go over that again, because it was really all about like you need to research the school and the programs as well as you can in order to find out what questions to ask the interviewer. So it took about 10 or 15 minutes talking just about that question. So please review that. Again, it's a really important topic. I hope people really take that to heart, that those questions are super vital. What you ask the interviewers, it really makes a huge difference. say, yeah, what could be the strong GPA? I mean, anything above a 3.6, 3.7, you're in pretty strong GPA land now. I'm a little skeptical when I see a plain 4.0. I only say that because I see actually probably more 4.0s than I do like 3.8s. Oddly enough, I see a lot of just 4.0, 4.0, which means to me, if I'm someone reviewing applications at a school and I see a lot of 4.0s, what that just tells me is, okay, that something happened in the translation and it really favored them as being the perfect candidate. I don't know if they would just easily get that GPA if it was in the US. They might get a 3.8 or a 3.9, but 4.0 is really tough to get. There are some people that definitely have that, but it's not easy. So, but I'm not trying to say you should worry if you have a 4.0. Don't worry, because if you have a 4.0, at least it shows that you're up there in general. So I'm not trying to create new worries for you. Can you give any tips for people like me who have a phobia for interviews? Wow, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's understandable phobia. And so we, it's why we created the Interview Mastery course, is because people kept coming to us and they're like, I don't know what to do about this. And so we walk them through kind of the basics, step by step, so that you kind of learn. If you can understand the theory behind interviewing, and I'm not talking about just the plain facts. Yeah, there's two people on either side of a table. That's not the theory. I'm talking about the psychological theory of interviewing. If you can understand the psychology that's happening, what's motivating a program, what are they looking for, and how are they psychologically affected by the things you say? How do you get them to respond in favor of you emotionally? Then it gives you a lot more confidence to walk into the interview. You may not be a great speaker in general, but if you understand the psychology, you can use specific tactics to overcome that and to create positive results in your interviewer. And so, in terms of getting over the fear itself, once you have an understanding of how the interview process works and what's happening at a subtle level, not just the obvious level, then you can at least go through that fear. You have to face that fear, of course, but you face it with a lot more confidence because you have an understanding. So, I mean, the worst thing is not knowing how things work and being scared. So now you're both ignorant and terrified, and then you walk into an interview and you blunder the whole thing. At least if you have fear, pair that with understanding, and that will give you confidence as well. And then, okay, what about GPA? I graduated from university in Europe with a 3.1, which most high would have been about 3.5. I'm guessing you mean the translated version here would be a 3.5 or 3.4. So I'm not sure, Dr. Mary Jacob, if you've had that translated yet. I'm not sure if the 3.1 is a translated one, or it's or if you expect it to be translated eventually at a 3.5. What I will say is, the good thing about a lower GPA if you graduated in Europe is that American universities would probably expect a level of similar grading kind of approaches, and so a 3.1 or 2 from Europe, they're going to expect that could be equal to, could be harder or about the same as a 3.12 in the US. And that could be favorable just because they at least can have a certain trust that there's, depending on what part part of Europe, I guess, but there's a certain trust that like, okay, well, Europe's also holding them to a strong standard. So even if it's a little lower than someone with a GPA from a country that they're not sure about, they're not as familiar with, so they might feel more comfortable with that, even if it's a little lower, I guess. So hopefully that makes sense. Do they consider university ranking and where we graduated from? I think that's a part of it. I think that's a part of it, but it really depends. Europe is a big place, so it depends on like exactly where. I would say that Europe is a pretty strong place to graduate for dentistry, though. So I mean, there's certain countries around the world that are considered strong and prestigious in dentistry. Europe being one of those places. So I think it's a plus. But like everything in your application, it's just like you have to take everything. And it's the sum of it all. So I mean, you could graduate from Europe, which is great. That would give you a plus in this area, but there could be other things that are bringing things down. And so at the end of it all, it might just work out so that you're kind of the same. So it depends, really. I don't know your situation, and so of course that really requires more evaluation there. But I mean, if you're just asking if you should be worried about a 3.12 GPA from Europe by itself, no, I wouldn't be that worried. I would focus on the other things. And so, yeah. Can you please post a recording after finishing? Yeah, so these are always, the public workshops are always posted in our member area afterwards. It's a great way for us to, again, add stuff for our members who have been with us for a while. And so this, of course, will go into our archive there. We do, again, want to make these available for people live, so that people can really get as much out of them, and so I would say the benefit of you guys coming to the live event is really great. So I know it takes time. You have to kind of work on your schedule a little bit and plan ahead. But that's one of the nice things about being a member, is that if you can't make it to these kind of live events, you always have the option to review it later, and we have these up in a few days afterwards. So great. And then I'll answer the last one by Sahia. Is shadowing experience good enough to keep on the resume besides passing the boards? I mean, absolutely, you'd want to keep your shadowing experience on a resume. There's no question about that. If you're asking if it's good enough in general besides passing the boards to be a really strong CV or resume, again, we'd have to couple that with the number of years of experience you've had in your home country as a practicing dentist, not just a dental student. We'd have to combine that with the, let's see, we'd have to combine that with any research you've done, or combine that with the strength of your SOP and your other application documents. So many factors and variables. So, and then your GPA, of course. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that. If it's just, all you've done really is just shadowing and passing the boards and everything else is kind of average, then you have a lot to catch up with in terms of preparing for your interview, if you have an interview. So definitely want to make sure. But again, I don't know your situation, so I'm saying sort of with all these kind of questions, the way I'm responding is like I'm giving you a very vague response. As I get to talk to each one of you more and learn your situation, usually things go up. That's the good news. Usually things, the more I learn about you, the more we can figure out what to really emphasize and highlight in your background so that you look the best for your interview. So anyway, yeah, I don't want to create fear for anyone. I also don't want to make you feel invincible. I want you to find out. I want you to be scared enough that you're preparing, though, because if you're not scared at all, a lot of people just won't prepare, and that's dangerous. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Thank you so much for your great questions. I really appreciate it. I know it's easy to sit back and just hide away and all that stuff, and you don't want to put your name out there for some people. But I really found that the people who ask questions and get involved and really let go of that kind of nervousness about be, trying to remain anonymous. Those people that really push forward, those are the ones that we see really do well at the end of the game. And at the end of the day, they really just push through, they get their acceptances, they move on. And no one really cares anyway. So I really appreciate the bravery that you guys show with that. So thank you. All right, well, have a great week, everyone. If you have an upcoming interview, I wish you the absolute best. Go rock on as you approach those. And again, do some research, ask some great questions at the end. Know that school back and forth. All right, take care, everyone.